Detroit to me has always been the catalyst of everything cool, everything that's dope.
That's the voice of Marcus Lewis, the Detroit native and founder of Full View Productions in the city. He joins me today to talk about the benefits of making national-level media right here in Detroit and how the Ernst and Young Entrepreneur of the Year built his business on the Third Coast. Welcome to your Daily Detroit for Monday, October 3rd, 2022. I'm Jer Stays. Let's get started after I thank our members at patreon.com/dailydetroit. That's patreon.com/dailydetroit. It's your support that helps us keep this going, and thank you. And let's get started. Joining me virtually from Detroit's Packard plant, Marcus Lewis. He is an Entrepreneur of the Year, according to Ernst and Young. He also is the entrepreneur, proprietor, chief cook, and bottle washer at Full View Productions. Marcus, I'm glad to talk to you. Welcome to Daily Detroit.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's really cool being here.
Your story, first off, it appeals to me. If listeners don't know, I'm a bit of a media nerd, and my world growing up professionally has been touched to media and video media, audio media in one way or another for the last 20 years. And so when I see a Detroit success story, it kind of warms my heart, especially somebody who is from the city, who has looked at ways to improve what they're doing. First off, how did you get into Full View Productions and the kind of work that you do?
I started Full View Productions back in 2015, but I was introduced to the industry when I was 10 years old, and kind of once been on set in the studio and saw kind of lights, cameras, and just a team of people just kind of building something, making something cool. I knew I was hooked at that moment. It was just years later, kind of freelancing and, interning and volunteering in the industry and just kind of sharpening my tools that I decided, hey, it was time to leave my last job and take that huge leap of faith. And beginning of 2015, I took it with no money, no assets, and said, hey, I'm going to figure this thing out. And we've been building it brick by brick.
That's awesome to hear. If you've got the hustle, this is something that I have learned over the years, that, you can teach anybody the skills that they need, but you cannot replace the hustle. Like somebody can come in, whether it's an intern for Daily Detroit or any of the other jobs I've worked or been a manager over the years. And if they don't have all the skills they need, but they want to learn and they'll show up on time and they'll do the work, you can work with that person. Somebody can have all the artistic skills in the world, but if they don't have it in them, that they don't want to win, they don't want to show up and put in the work, that's not going to be somebody who works out for you. And I feel like that kind of ethos is very similar in being an entrepreneur and building a business like yours. You're on the different side of the media coin than I am. We do more podcasts and audience media, but for you, you're doing a ton of corporate and broadcast work and stuff that's, for clients and such, which, I know from personal experience, the demands and the needs of that are very high.
Absolutely. We're visual content creators. I mean, the demand for content is through the roof with, the new tidal wave of streaming platforms, as well as just, traditional outlets. Everyone's seeking more and more media. And, I didn't have a traditional education route into learning how to jump into the creative film industry. It was just kind of me figuring out on my own, and just staying hungry and volunteering and doing whatever I can take really to do to learn the business and surround myself with really, really cool creative people that I could really learn from. And that's what we do here today. We have community internship programs where we're taking people that don't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it, but those who are hungry and really want to learn and really want to do something cool that, has a chance of paying really, really well as well, I'm very proud of to say, hey, we got some people that really started not knowing much about this industry, and they're doing national broadcast content on a regular basis.
So, you're from the city of Detroit. How has that helped you in creating content and storytelling and kind of helped you along with your story?
Detroit, to me, has always been the catalyst of everything cool, everything that's dope, from the auto industry to, my parents worked in and kind of give me a future and livelihood growing up to music. Everyone kind of comes to Detroit and takes a little bit out of it. And you can kind of see that across the country of just the impact of the Detroit culture And being around such a melting pot of creatives and people who just have really cool visions, and more importantly, the hustle, right? No one hustled harder than Detroit. And that's the reason why I'm here today, is because the city, seeing those look like me who just figure it out no matter what, that's what allowed me to build Full View Productions from nothing.
From being around the city for a while, you've seen those shirts that say Detroit hustles harder, right?
Absolutely.
Well, for me, I feel like those shirts would say Detroit hustle slash site hustle slash delivers food slash Uber drivers slash takes care of grandma harder. Because we've all got a ton
Absolutely.
of things we got to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do it all, right? And we do it with stride, and we do what we have to do to win. And that's the beauty of Detroit.
Right. And, look, we're all dealing with different challenges, but try to do it with a smile, or like, hey, this may be where things are at right now, but it won't be where things are at tomorrow.
Absolutely. Detroit evolves and we're evolving. We've had some hurdles to climb and jump, but no one could have done what we've done. No one could have gone through the struggles that we've gone through and came out shining like a diamond that we do every day. And it's because of your people in the community that just figures it out, kind of hell or high water.
Yeah, that's absolutely on point. So you mentioned evolution, and I think about even the changes, you mentioned 2015 or so is when Full View got started and you got into this phase of your career. I think about the last 20 years plus of my career. There have been a lot of evolutions and changes in media. What are a couple of the things that are the biggest changes if you were to look back at 2015 yourself and then look today at 2022?
One of the biggest things for us, especially being a creative team of storytellers, is really getting to know who the organization, who the brand, what that product service initiative is beyond that. Originally, back in 2015, a little bit earlier, everybody was, looking to kind of market out product service initiative. But consumers and just people who just want to know and just want more about how they're spending their dollar or how they're engaging in an organization, they want to know beyond that. They want to know who the people are. They want to know the stories, the messaging, the why am I, investing or, putting my funds behind something. And it's really about the story. And if people don't have a story that's engaging and connecting, that's talking about not only their brand culture, their DEI, as well as just their overall community engagement, then a lot of people are just getting a lot more turned off and looking for those who really have an impact. And that's what we focus on.
What's the number? Like 80,000 different ads or something in a given day?
Yeah.
But very few of those ads are truly stories that resonate with people. And if I think about the ways that things have changed and stayed the same, yes, formats might change, TikTok and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about a compelling story that grabs people and grabs people quickly.
Absolutely. There's nothing more important than having a story. And ideally and hopefully that when people are telling their stories, they're authentic and they're real to who they are and real to their brand. And we make sure as content practitioners that we really get into the root and the DNA and uncovering that and letting the world know, hey, this is what this organization is about, just like we tell our own story.
Yeah, you mentioned DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like I have to take the opportunity to talk about you are a successful Black businessman in a city that is, super majority Black, but sometimes that, and in fact, often, the business community does not reflect the majority population. And what are some of the things that you have found to kind of break through a bit and build out? Because, it's more than you. You've got a team. Like most businesses in the city of Detroit are one or two people, and you have a team around you, and you've got your space and you're building this client base. What are some of the things that you found to deal with the inevitable obstacles and challenges, as well as what advantages are you able to play?
First, I'll say I'm still dealing with some of those obstacles
I'm sure,
day. So I feel it like, every other minority group, and especially Black folks here in Detroit, trying to be an entrepreneur and figuring out the steps of that journey. I sit on the board of the MMSDC, the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council. They're really focused on minority organizations and making sure that they have a fair shot of competing in the corporate space with corporates all across the nation and really the world. And it, to me, is about being an advocate. And as I grow, that I make sure that I'm, leaving foot trails or a ladder or something or a rope that others can come up on so that, I'm not the only one going up this imaginary mountain by myself, because even as you climb up, it gets lonelier and lonelier at the top. So for me, it's very, very important to make sure that I empower everyone, teaching them from the financial side of making sure their books are in order and they're having their accounting, having the business structure. All those things are so, so very important. And without those, and I see a lot of it as well, without those, you build something, but it's often built on a really shaky foundation. And that's why 8 out of 10 Black-owned businesses fail within the first 18 months. So for me, is making it my priority to let people know, hey, here are the steps, and giving every tool, every nugget that I can to ensure that my success can reflect out and help someone else be successful as well.
What are a few ways that you've been able to make inroads into the corporate world? Listeners may or may not know, I used to work in corporate communications myself. It is a difficult world to operate in, even, with all the advantages.
Mhm.
And it's doubly so when you have a number of, basically the field's kind of tilted against you.
Mhm.
And I'm just being completely honest about that.
Sure.
What are some of the things that you have learned to kind of advance in that space?
First is building a structure. People respect structure and uniform just kind of across the board. Being a certified national minority business enterprise has definitely helped me get some footing in that space. And more importantly, just showing up. There's a lot of organizations that put on incubators. I was part of, before I won Entrepreneur of the Year, I was part of the Entrepreneur Access Network through EY, and that was free to join. It didn't require anything. I was a part of the inaugural cohort. And that just literally, they just kind of took you by the hand and said, hey, what do you need? How can we help? We're assigning our people to connect with our people. And you're talking about a global organization. So it's not that, hey, the help doesn't exist. Sometimes you got to dig for it, you got to look for it. But there are a lot of corporate organizations that are looking for minority owned entrepreneurs and saying, hey, how do we help you evolve? How do we help you grow? But personally, for self, you have to really make sure that, hey, you're building a sure foundation and not expecting that people are just going to write you a check just because you showed up. That there's going to have to be work and there's going to have to be discipline in order to build it. Like, people have to understand that, hey, when they're doing business with someone, this business is built to stick around. So if you can't build that, even if, in my earlier days, it was a facade. I didn't even have an office or a phone. I had 2 cell phones and a really cool website, right? And you just build it so it looks really, really good. Sure, we were able to do the work. I was a one-man band, really, but I delivered and I always came through and I kept my word. And that allowed me one step at a time to build up.
I was going to ask you from a day-to-day perspective, what are some tips? But that delivery and keeping your word, I think, is pretty universal, honestly. Like, if you're somebody
Mhm.
who can't manage a schedule, like, it's so funny. People wonder with me, it's, why do you put everything into your Google Calendar? Well, it's because if it's
Mhm.
not in my calendar, it does not exist. And I know me, and I've learned to build crutches that help me
Yeah.
go, oh, hey, my phone goes off and this is what's going on. And this is the next thing. And I can look up at my Alexa and see every meeting that I need to be at that day. And
Mhm.
where are the projects at? And some people, especially younger people to the industry, bristle at that. But I learned a lot of those skills when I worked as a floor manager. Because when you're working at a
Mhm.
floor manager as a TV station, everybody's relying on you. Devin Skillian, Carmen
Absolutely.
Harlan was relying on
Mhm.
my organization.
Absolutely.
And so that's why it maddens younger people into the industry because, they're creatives, right? They want the freedom, but a
Yeah.
calendar and organization gives you freedom. And you literally can put in your calendar time for yourself.
Absolutely.
I know it sounds crazy, but I think it's important.
It's very important. And I was one of those guys who was probably on the unorganized spectrum for quite a while. But in order to grow, like you say, you have to be organized. And I'm a person who kind of hates pen and paper. So everything's in a device. And I encourage, those, the younger folks, the millennials, Gen X, or whatever it may be, that use your devices, leverage your tools. Everything I have is some in a cloud on some device, and it's always with you when you need it, even when you lose those devices. But I agree 100%. You can't do anything if you don't have simple organization. And that has to be personally as well as professionally.
Oh, 100%. Because you've got to be able to deliver. Because, yes, everyone has things that happen in their life, but when it comes to a business
Hmm.
perspective, you need to follow through. You might laugh at this. I remember when I first started, we didn't have all these tools. And so I always had a clipboard like at my hip constantly that I was just going through each and every day. I was like Columbo with a clipboard. So I'm so thankful for these digital tools.
Yeah, they make it so much easier. And again, I remember, before the smartphone era happened as well, and you just had to figure it out, right? Everybody had little planner books or, back in the day, like a trapper keeper type of deal, right? You had to figure out, something to help keep you organized. But now it's easy, right? You don't have to write it down. You can tell Siri, hey, put this in my calendar. So there's just no excuse for people not being organized, because that level of organization reflects in your business, from your personal finances to your business finances, as well as just kind of your overall bookkeeping. So organization is paramount.
So what's next for you guys? There's a lot of different clients you have. You can go to your website and check it out. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's fullviewpro.com. And so you've done a lot of like name brand projects. You've done a variety of work, but what's kind of next? Because you don't strike me as the kind of guy who just kind of sits on success and then's like, well, it's good enough.
No, no, not at all. And that's the beauty of the team that I've surrounded myself with as well. We always stay hungry and try to figure out the next level of creative. We just invested in the first cinema robot, Kira robot, in the state of Michigan. It's basically an automotive arm with a camera on the end of it to take us to that next level of creative. That's our latest investment and tool that we're really looking from a product and just kind of overall creative standpoint to kind of elevate the look, the feel of cinema. But Full View Productions is built as a catalyst to really allow us to get into the original content space. As you mentioned earlier, we have so many different outlets. As media is, content is blowing up, and there's no reason why Detroit shouldn't have a footing in making that content and something being made from Detroit for us. And we believe we're going to be the ones that drive that for the city of Detroit. So we have the latest tools in cinema. We have everything you can think of that Hollywood really uses, from the cameras, lenses, supports, jibs, all the mounting. We have all the tools right here in our warehouse. And for us, it's making our own original content, whether that's full feature movies, documentaries, TV shows. We're fully capable of doing it. We're just making sure that, hey, we have a sturdy foundation. So as we pursue that next phase, that we're sufficient and dependent on ourselves to be able to produce without needing kind of anyone other than the creatives that we have, a really cool community around us, and really cool talent that exists right here in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, there is amazing talent in the city of Detroit and nearby to draw from. And it would be absolutely amazing to see more of that kind of work happening in the city of Detroit and happening with companies from here, right? Because,
Absolutely.
we've had those incentives and things like that. And lots of people come into town, and it's no hate against them at all. But there is
Sure.
something specific about keeping that money into the community and then reinvesting it in our own talent that I think is so important.
Absolutely. Oftentimes, as I mentioned, in the other ways, people come and they take from Detroit and they take it somewhere else. We need to figure out a way to keep those dollars here, as well as utilizing the amazing talent that rivals anyone around the world right here in our own backyard, and giving us the stage and a platform to shine, in which we truly deserve.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we're right now looking at finding a retail space to do the studio and kind of
Mhm.
that be our next chapter, because there needs to be multiple things in multiple areas of media to really build the ecosystem so that people stay here, move here, invest here, and then projects invest here, whatever media format, whatever they are. And that's only going to lift everybody up when we're able to support talent like that, you know?
Absolutely. Like I say, that ecosystem is so important. And we have all the tools to do it. We just need to figure it out, organize it, and really start leaning on each other to figure that out. And there's no reason why we can't come out prosperous.
We are done for today. Feedback, as always, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Always glad to hear from you. I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody. We'll talk soon.